Overwatch. Upon release, this game took the world by storm. Something people haven't seen, something completely new. This game made history. A hero shooter that defined the genre, creating not only compelling and enjoyable gameplay, but a lot of tropes we still see within gaming today. So you'd be correct in thinking this game would go down in history. And you'd be right, but maybe not for the reasons you're thinking. See, despite the overwhelming success of this title, it still somehow managed to cement itself as one of the greatest downfalls of all time. Which is why we're here today, to take a look at how it did this. How a game goes from being a global phenomenon to an overall failure. So let's start with the beginning, shall we? Overwatch was originally teased by Blizzard at BlizzCon on November 7th, 2014. Players were hyped for the new Blizzard game, at the time Blizzard being known for its smash hits such as StarCraft, Diablo, and of course, World of Warcraft. This was a genre they hadn't yet ventured into, something completely new. Everyone around the world looked on with hope, ready for what they were cooking up. Would this be the next big Blizzard game? Would this be able to capture the magic they have so many times? Almost a full year later, Blizzard was nearly ready to give the people what they wanted, continuing to build hype with their first trailer, which just added the overwhelming feeling that this game was going to be a success, giving out beta keys to streamers and YouTubers alike. Blizzard knew exactly what they were doing here, building the game up to a point that no one believed they would be able to deliver, but alas, they did, and finally, we got Overwatch. Finally, the game would release on the 24th of May 2016, and people were hyped. Players in the millions flocked to try out this game, quickly falling in love with it. Something completely new and captivating. The game launched with a whopping 21 different playable characters, all so different in playstyle, design, role, and so much more. There was something for everyone. But Blizzard didn't stop there. Releasing with 4 original game modes over 12 maps, players were sure not to get bored. And people simply couldn't get enough of the game. This became an overnight success. From casual players to pros, everyone agreed this was worth their time. And surely enough, people couldn't get enough of it. Topping both YouTube and Twitch chats at the time, if you weren't playing Overwatch, you were watching Overwatch. Creating some of the biggest names we know to this day, names such as Tim the Tatman, XQC, Necros, and one of the most annoying songs to ever hit YouTube. Nerf Bastion! Overwatch was the starting point for so many games, creators, and memories. But as with any game, you need to keep your player base happy. You need... One thing you have to give Overwatch was its constant stream of updates, whether through patches or new content entirely. We all know that in recent years, players want new things to try out, so to keep everyone interested, you need to make sure your game has a constant stream of updates, which Overwatch did. Each update adding so much more. The first major update adding rank to the game. Now, I covered this briefly in my previous video about Apex and Titanfall, which I'll link in the description. Ranked is vital for a game's success in recent years. I'm not saying it has to be there, I'm just saying it helps. Players want something to grind for. They want to prove how good they truly are. And Overwatch having a wide range of characters to choose from, players wanted to prove they were the best with their hero. What happens if you didn't enjoy any of the characters Overwatch has to offer? You didn't have to wait long. With a constant stream of updates, new playable characters weren't far away. With the first few, adding characters such as Anna, a sniper healer who can shoot either her own team or enemies. She was nothing like we'd seen before. Or Sombra, a stealthy hacker for you to sneak around causing chaos within the game. Overwatch had so much content to sink your teeth into, and this just kept coming, with characters being not the only thing they would add. Different maps and cosmetics to follow along. This gave players another thing to grind for. I mentioned before that Overwatch had a few things in their game that the other games took and use to this day, one of the main ones being loot boxes. You could either gain these through playing the game, or simply buy them. This was your only way of getting cosmetics you wanted. Through those loot boxes, you would either get cosmetics you want, or you would gain coins to purchase the cosmetics. Overwatch had enough content to keep players playing for years, and people definitely weren't getting bored anytime soon. This wasn't the only thing that came with the updates. See, besides your normal patches and content updates, we also got seasonal updates, which came with all new game modes. PvE. Players loved this, tapping into the vast lore of Overwatch and giving you a chance to play out history, move the story along. Everyone who wanted something got something. Overwatch was doing it all, and topping the charts while doing so. Going the extra mile to keep its players happy, and everyone noticed. Blizzard even brought the possibility of server hosting, allowing players to make custom maps, game modes, and other creative things. This would allow the players' creativity to be endless. I know that some of my favourite memories are playing custom games on Halo 3 and Halo Reach back in the day. Something about just hopping on and playing random bullshit with your friends. Blizzard slowly moved the manpower to other areas, and we didn't know about this. But players were quick to realise. People noticed the lack of content coming into the game and wondered why the game they loved was no longer being supported as it once was. See, Overwatch was still thriving. Why would Blizzard seemingly abandon it? We wouldn't have to wait long until we found out, as Blizzard announced its biggest update to Overwatch to this day. And there it was, the announcement of Overwatch 2. Blizzard promised players a whole new world of content to play. Overwatch 2 would launch with an entirely new game mode called Push, where each team would capture an objective and, you guessed it, push the others back. You would do this until you managed to capture the enemy's points and push them back to their spawn. Hero reworks, but not only that, they wanted to introduce an entirely new system with hero perks. This would essentially change the entire way a hero played. Based on different perks you took, you would be able to craft and build your hero how you wanted. But Blizzard didn't stop there, promising players something they'd been asking for since Overwatch released: a fully PvE campaign mode, which would take you all around the world and build upon the already vast and rich lore of Overwatch. It's safe to say everyone who had an interest in Overwatch, well, their eyes were locked onto this, waiting for the date, waiting to play what Blizzard was promising. And why wouldn't they? It seemed like Blizzard was listening to their community and wanted to truly give people what they wanted. Even going as far as promising everyone who purchased Overwatch 1 a free copy of Overwatch 2. Now I wish I could end this video here. I wish I could say Blizzard delivered on all of this and everyone was happy. As someone who sunk countless hours into this game, I myself was hyped, but sadly this wasn't the case. On the lead up to Overwatch 2's release, Blizzard announced they wouldn't be able to release all of the game features at the same time, citing that things like perks, reworks, and the very well anticipated PvE campaign would come later on, essentially giving players an updated version of Overwatch 1. What happened when the game launched? Well, let's talk about it. On the 4th of October 2022, Blizzard would release Overwatch 2. This came with 3 new playable characters, those being Junker Queen, Sojourn, and last but not least, Kiriko. These 3 additions were a welcome change, along with a new map and a new game mode. But it's also here that Blizzard made a very controversial change, taking the 6v6 gameplay players new and changing it to 5v5. Gone were the days of main tanking and off tanking in favour for just one tank. Tunnel healing them was the only way you were going to win. This took a lot of creativity away. Being able to swap and change your team comps was gone, as if you know playing something slightly off meta, you were almost guaranteed a loss. This also meant that if you were a tank main, it now felt that you had to change the way you played the game. If you favoured rushing in and brawling and getting out playstyle, you might as well change your role to DPS, because once you go down, so does your team. So it's safe to say that players hated this change. However, Blizzard didn't stop there. In perhaps the worst possible thing they could do, Blizzard released their Battle Pass. Now, Battle Passes themselves aren't necessarily a bad thing. If you offer plenty of content for a reasonable price, players are happy to grind this out. And when you look playable heroes behind this, that's when you know you fucked up. See, one of the best ways to win your games was to adjust your comp, counterpicking the enemy team to make sure that your team comes out on top. But how are you going to do this if you haven't spent £8.99 on the newest Battle Pass? People were quickly realising that Overwatch 2 wasn't what was promised. Not only did it release with half the features, but it made several changes that the community hated. From changing the core gameplay to overhauling the rank system, people were quick to cry out that this isn't what they waited for, that this isn't what they wanted. And now the cracks truly start to show. It's here we begin the... As a steady decline of players continued, there was still a few holding out hope, waiting for what Blizzard announced all that time ago. and it's here the hopes and dreams would shatter. In May 2023, during a live stream, Blizzard would make a crushing announcement. The widely anticipated hero mode, with its all new talent trees and match-altering gameplay, would be scrapped. But they would be shifting their focus back to the PvP experience. You know, the thing they kind of fumbled the first time around. Combine this with the fact that Overwatch 2 felt like a very bad overhaul of Overwatch 1, and you basically had the recipe for a very, very unhappy player base. But Overwatch did announce that it would be continuing with limited time modes, so not all hope was lost. That's how Blizzard saw it at the time. Quickly, players lost interest with Overwatch 2. Heroes locked behind battle passes, new 5v5 gameplay, a poorly designed rank system. People just didn't see the reason to stick around. Now, I've played a lot of Overwatch in my time, and was playing during these events, and every game felt very one-sided. Gone were the days of intense fights, edge of your seat experience. During this time, you either steamrolled or you got rolled. But it wasn't just the players that were unhappy. The people whose career were built around Overwatch quickly found new games to entertain their fanbase with. So with its fans gone, its creators gone, and seemingly everyone losing interest, what could Blizzard do? It's here Blizzard made the statement that most of the changes Overwatch 2 brought with it would be reversed. 6v6 was back, more new heroes were coming, more maps like the ones we loved. Blizzard did what they haven't managed to do for years and admit they made a mistake. They listened to the players and tried to scrape as many back as possible, but they still wanted to make the game feel new. This wasn't just Overwatch 1, this was Overwatch 2. The rank system overhauled back to how it was before, heroes no longer locked behind battle passes, and rumours they would bring back loot boxes. But they didn't stop there. In recent years, Blizzard added the perk system to the game. Although not exactly what was promised, this definitely was a step in the right direction, giving each hero a choice of 4 perks throughout the game, 2 of which you could choose. These aren't game changing, but can vastly depend on the situation you're in. They did breathe some new life into the game, a game that I would have said was on its dying legs. Blizzard also released the game on Steam, allowing for a whole new audience to access it. The game was previously only playable through the Blizzard client. They also made this game free to play very, very early on. So for now, Blizzard was taking steps in the right direction. And for the first time in a long time, players could actually start looking back towards Overwatch. And something happened. Just like any game that blows up and becomes widely popular, Overwatch has its direct competition, with some games being quite good, and an unfair comparison to their titan, ultimately killing them before they could have a chance to live, and others somehow surviving despite basically being the same game. It's fair to say that at one point these were a dime a dozen, but how did these games square up during the time Overwatch managed to undo all the things they had done? Well, one game overall capitalized on the space that Overwatch left. Introducing Marvel Rivals. Now, this video isn't sponsored or anything, although that would be nice. I just think it's relevant to speak about this, about the lasting impact that Overwatch had. See, Marvel Rivals took great inspiration from Overwatch, so much so that upon release there was countless videos calling it a cheap clone with reskinned gameplay and a third-person view. But despite this, the game has been an overwhelming success, as players found something that they could wash out the sour taste Overwatch left in their mouths. With devs that actively listened to their community, constant updates, balances, free content, people soon forgot about the game that they once fell in love with. People soon forgot about the original hero shooter. Now, I'm not saying that this game is without its flaws, because obviously that would be a lie, but this video isn't about Rivals, it's about Overwatch. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into this, as I don't think it would be worth mentioning. I just thought it was relevant to point out that Overwatch inspired an entire community, an entire genre of games. After all is said and done, no one can say that Overwatch wasn't successful. It was. The game created and revolutionized an entire genre of gaming. It's a game that took over the world for either good or bad. Overwatch was what any developer would want from their new title. An overwhelmingly loved game, and one that lasted years. One that so many of us have such fond memories of. It's also a story of how people won't just allow you to kill their game. That people are sick of false promises, and that overall our enjoyment is what truly matters. Whilst the game is still played, and Blizzard still continues to update it with new content, it isn't what it was in its prime. Drama surrounds it for one reason or another. Which just leaves us all asking, what will Blizzard do? Will they continue to support the game and try to bring it back? Or will they eventually put it on live support, like they have done with so many games in the past?